Hello, my friends, hello, and welcome once again to the thrilling Vaughn Manor, where Roger and I have returned to talk to you about the state of adventure here at the thrilling Vaughn Manor. So, on November 20th, 2022, an adventure began. An adventure began. Myself and some other intrepid booktubers began the adventure of the 500 book challenge. There was me, there was Sterling Reeds, there was David Wiley, there was another Bibliophile Reeds, there was CriminOlly, and now
all by myself. I don't wanna be all by myself.
now there's just me. So, the 500 book challenge. Let's do a 500 book challenge update. It's been a while since I did an update for the 500 book challenge to tell you how things were going with this action-packed challenge I've got going on. So, of course, the 500 book challenge, the challenge to read 500 books before I will buy any new ones, based off of the Read What You Own challenge created by CriminOlly over at CriminOlly's channel. CriminOlly's challenge topped out at 100, although he did join us for the 500 book challenge when I started that in November. Tentatively, he knew he was not probably going to finish it, but he joined along with us. And since that day, November 20th, 2022, everybody now has officially stopped the 500 challenge. Either they failed or they've given up or just backed away from it. Like, first, it was Sterling Reeds. Sterling Reeds just, she just bought a book. And then I think it was CriminOlly. Now, CriminOlly did read 100 books. So he did his 100 book challenge and he completed that. But he felt he could go no further because the way his channel runs, CriminOlly's channel, he reads like so many books and has to talk about all these books. So it just didn't work out for him. So that's understandable. But he did read 100 books. Then David Wiley kind of took a step back. I don't know. He just stopped counting the books for the 500 book challenge, I think. He said I think he said something like it was making him miserable. Well, we don't want David to be miserable. So I don't think he's bought any books, though. So I guess he's sort of... But no, because he says he's not keeping track. So David Wiley backed out of the 500 book challenge, from what I understand. And then this morning, as of this recording this morning, Greg at another Bibliophile Reads has officially failed the 500 book challenge. Although he did do really well. He got over 100 books. He was at 120 something, which is way ahead of me. So he did well, and he knew eventually, Greg knew eventually that he knew eventually he would fail. This is one of those challenges where I think, you walk into it knowing, there's a good chance I'm not going to make it through this. As for myself, I will let you know how it's going. Okay, the 500 book challenge. How's it going for me now that I'm all alone? Well, I'm not all alone. I've got Roger. I'm the only living person still doing it. But, if you want to count the undead, then Roger's right there with me. Thanks, Roger, for your support. But yeah, I'm the only living person still doing this, apparently. Officially, I guess. I am at, right now, this is the issue. This is my issue. I'm going through books. I'm not going through books fast enough. So I'm on book number 45 right now. I'm reading this book. Great book. Well, it's not great, but it's fun. I'm enjoying this one. This is City at World's End by Edmund Hamilton. I'm not sure Edmund Hamilton ever did write a great book, but he wrote a lot of entertaining books, and this is one of them. The City at World's End. This is part of my vintage science fiction project. My vintage science fiction project, my project to read, my attempt to read, every vintage science fiction book that I own before I die. The 500 book challenge should be helpful for that, because I was getting a lot of vintage science fiction and always had, and I've got hundreds and hundreds of I don't even know how many, but it's hundreds of vintage science fiction books. And this is one of them, number 45 on the challenge. That is my issue. That's my biggest issue right now, is that I'm going through books too slowly. There are a couple reasons for this. The big reason is that for some reason I have to work. I go to work every day, almost. And if I were retired, this challenge would be a breeze, but work takes up a lot of my time. Also, I read comic books. I'm doing, also I've got the, another challenge, the World's Finest Challenge, where I read, my challenge to read Superman and Batman like every day of my life. And then I read other comic books on top of that. But like yesterday, when I should have been reading this, I spent an awful lot of time reading Batman. So, well, Superman and Batman. So, you know, that's why I'm not done with this. Otherwise, I would have been done with this. So there's that. So I've got to find a way to read more, to spend more time reading. I've resolved to the fact that I'm really not going to read, I'm not actually going to read faster, but I've got to find more time to read. I got to sneak in more time to read. Because that's what my one issue, because when I initially started the challenge, I thought, well, this will take about 5 years. You know, I could do 100 books a year. That doesn't look like it's going to be the case, at least as things stand now. Also because I've got some larger books due up, like I'm probably going to read this book this year, and this is, how big is this book? It's over 8, so it's a mammoth. You know, I've got some mammoths lined up. I still have to read the other half of Varney the Vampire. I've got a lot of stuff going on, and some of these books that I'm going to read are big. So that knocks down the numbers, but so that's my one issue. So I'm going to have to, like, in between long books, I'm just going to have to sneak in some short books, some small books. Another thing is with the 500 book challenge, I did knock around some things on the channel. Like I had my fancy book project where I was buying fancy book versions of my 100 favorite books. So I had the 100 favorite books project, which was completely destroyed by this challenge because I can't buy new fancy versions of books that are my favorite books if I can't buy books. So that was destroyed, but that's okay. I could live with that being destroyed. I've also got a new project, a new video project that's starting this Thursday. It's thrilling. And I needed to check if I had copies of all the books because I got to read them. And anyway, I had to check if I had certain books, and I do have them all. Although some of them I only have digitally. This is another thing that happened during the 500 book challenge. Is at one point I decided, you know, screw ebooks because Amazon's evil. It was a whole thing. And I decided just to read physical books, but then it was pointed out to me, you can't change the rules on a project after you've already started it. That's kind of cheating. And a lot of my books are ebooks, so I'm doing ebooks again. If I already have them. If I already own them. So, yeah, otherwise, the 500 book challenge is just rolling along for me. I hadn't gone into a bookstore since the challenge started really until yesterday. The lady of the manor wanted a book. And so she wanted a specific book. So we went into one of my favorite bookstores, which is Pegasus in Berkeley. And so I wandered around a bookstore for the first time in a while, just kind of, knowing I couldn't get anything, you know. And then I saw a book on the shelf. It was a Dashiell Hammett book that if I was not on this challenge, I would have just bought it right away. I don't need it because I'm a huge fan of Dashiell Hammett and I've got all his books, but this was a nice copy of this book, and I was sorely tempted, but I didn't buy it. And so that was an interesting experience. It's an interesting experience browsing around a bookstore knowing you can't get anything for yourself when you love books. So I could see why this challenge is so difficult and why people think it's crazy. People think it's crazy, and I guess it is a little crazy. Because this is something that's literally going to take years, and it's going to take more time than I thought it was going to take when I started. I think the only bump in the road going forward really is I am going to be visiting the legendary Brattle bookstore later on this year. The legendary Brattle bookstore that Steve Donoghue is always talking about. And when I first started watching BookTube, I was watching Steve Donoghue, and so the Brattle bookstore has always loomed large in my imagination. So I'm going to visit that bookstore, but I'm not going to buy books for myself. I have a shopping list, though. I got to get books for Greg and Ollie and MJ and Mark. And I've got a few people, Sean, I've got a few people I'm going to be specifically going there to buy books for, just not for myself. I'm going to be buying gifts for other people and sending them books from the Brattle, because I think that'll just be a cool thing to do. But for myself, I'm not going to buy anything. Although, that might be the big challenge. If I could overcome that, if I can go there and not get books for myself, I'm probably set. I'm pretty set anyway, though, I think. Even though I have people telling me I should quit this nonsense and that it's ridiculous and crazy and all of that is, okay, it's true. But will I give up the 500 book challenge now after everybody else in the challenge has fallen away? Now that I am the only one doing this stupid challenge, will I give it up? No! I will die before I give up the 500 book challenge. This challenge is going to take so long. I might die before No! I will not give up the 500 book challenge. It's just going to keep going on and on and on and on forever. Seemingly. That's okay. If I do pass away before the challenge is over, you've got your instructions, right? Roger's got the Necronomicon all ready, so if anything happens to me, he's just going to raise me from the dead. And I'll just continue on with the 500 book challenge, undead. See, I've got it all worked out. So yeah, the challenge is rolling right along, even though I'm the last one doing it. Okay, guys, I will catch you next time.